50 years of Cold War and cold shoulders have come to an end after President Obama reestablished diplomatic ties with Cuba.
The president delivered this historic announcement this morning from the White House. Under an agreement with Cuba, the U.S. will open an embassy in Havana and review that country's designation as a state sponsor of terrorism. As part of the deal, Cuba also released American Alan Gross. He has been in a Cuban prison for 5 years for trying to help Cuban Jews get better web and phone access. The president says now is the right time for change, but he's also facing some tough critics.
I believe that we can do more to support the Cuban people and promote our values through engagement. After all, these 50 years have shown that isolation has not worked. It's time for a new approach.
There will be no elections, no democratic opening, nothing, zero. All they've done here today is make it easier for the Castro regime and their system of government to now become permanent forever on the island of Cuba. This president has to be the worst negotiator we've ever had.
Under the agreement, travel restrictions will be eased to Cuba, but tourists are still banned from visiting the nation.
Here in Texas, there are more than 45,000 Cuban Americans. KXAN's Phil Prazen explains what those changes to travel rules mean for them.
It's not a bad life. 92 years old, she's there.
Melades Chaviano missed her grandmother's funeral. She could not navigate restrictions for returning to Cuba. Pictures are often her only connection.
These years I lost 3 persons in my family and I can go. You know, my grandma, my cousin, my uncle, and I can go.
Her Cuban passport is filled with receipts showing she's paid hundreds of dollars each time she goes home.
I've been there twice.
Charles Hale, chair of Western Hemisphere Studies at UT Austin, says hurdles like these break families apart and hurt business.
And none of those ties could really be fully realized when there's so much difficulty moving back and forth.
Melades saw the president's announcement Wednesday, and opportunities could open up for her and her 2 young daughters.
You know, I want to meet my daughter, see where is she coming from. You're from Cuba, you're not from here.
As Cold War policies thaw, Melades hopes her daughters can spend time with their family.
Susana, Joydiel, Jessica.
Just names now, but she hopes her daughters rebuild those ties with her home country. Phil Prazen, KXAN News.